Good afternoon. My name is Sandy McDonald, and I'm the Director of the Office of Economic and Small Business Development, and thank you for joining us today. We're going to talk about the new stimulus rollout today. We're hoping that you're engaged and that you're listening and that you will be paying attention because you believe that your business is still in need of some support. You believe that this will be one of the additional steps to help you stabilize your business as well as come out of COVID and an energy with some synergy that's going to afford you a better 2021 than unfortunately you may have had in 2020. Going to have a couple of dynamic speakers today. I have Althea Harris, a very close friend representing the SBA. We got Osarimi Adioke from the NDC National Development Council, and both will have valuable, tangible, substantive information to share about PPP, EIDL, and just in general, as we aid businesses in their next step to help you strategize as well as identify resources that you can use. Next slide. So if you don't know much about our program, the Office of Economic and Small Business Development, we're here on behalf of Broward County. We're in Broward County. I'm here, 31 cities, approximately 1.9 million residents, over 74,000 businesses in our community. But we're here to support our small businesses as well as other businesses, including large. We educate and we inspire entrepreneurs. We do workshops to help get small businesses and startups started. We promote job creation. It's really all about jobs, making sure that within prosperity, everyone wanting a job, everyone can develop skills to be a part of our workforce. And we are a service agency, which means our small business component affords us the opportunity of making sure whatever the county procures, whatever we buy, we try to make sure at least 25% of that we buy from small businesses. So come back, see me another day, check out our website, check out our webpage, and learn more about our small business program. But today, we want to try to focus on educating as well as empowering you to feel comfortable about understanding what's available with this second round of PPP, as well as understanding how you still have access to EIDL and making sure you're clear as a business, as a small business, as a minority or woman-owned business, that you have carved out opportunities and you need to do your part. You need to be in position to come after these funds, to use these funds for eligible uses, and to be in a position to report when required or requested those uses, but more importantly, to stabilize your business and help you go ahead. So with that, we're getting ready to move. Next slide, please, into our presentations. And we want to make sure that you understand, surviving the dark days of COVID, we're going to call it what it was. Dark days of COVID. A lot happened to you as a business that directly and indirectly was not your fault. Because of federal, state, and local restrictions, we took some of your customers away. All done in the name of health and safety, but it still impacted many of your businesses. And because of that, we want to make sure you have access to the resources you need. Next slide. That you are aware that more help is within reach. And again, PPP, EIDL, this workshop today is just a part of your overall strategy to sustaining your business and preparing to grow your business, to not just survive, but to end up thriving. This is just a piece. We're not saying that this is all the answers, because this is not all the answers, but it's certainly a piece that you need to be aware of. And again, that's why we're here today. Next slide. So what we're going to try to do is go through the areas of PPP, initially PPP, second draw, loan details, definitely talk to you about the EIDL funding, qualification requirements, documentation needed. And again, because I'm very, very excited about the two presenters, they're going to make sure that you hear it and understand it in a manner upon which you will understand. Trust me, they're going to be straight, no chaser, about being honest about you doing your part, but they do recognize these funds are carved out for that listening audience of mine today. This is really about those minority, those women, those small businesses. This is really about those guys who got 50 employees or less, or like the majority of my businesses, 20 employees or less. So if you're here, I'm excited that you're here, and I'm sure you'll get information. So if you have questions, definitely go to the Q&A and put your questions. We will have Q&A at the end of the presentations, but we want to make sure that we can get as many questions answered as possible. So we'll be communicating with you through the Q&A, but we will actually have a Q&A at the end of the presentations. So with that, next slide. Allow me to introduce you to Althea Harris, once again, Supervisory Outreach and Marketing Specialist on behalf of the U.S. Small Business Administration. And again, she might be in Miami, but she is a close friend, a family, a relative right here to us in Broward County. And I'm so just excited and thankful that she's able to join us today. So Althea, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you, Sandy. It's always a pleasure to be with you. You are such a superstar. Man, I tell you, I've been on the small business circuit a long time, and it is such a pleasure to be with you and your stellar team up there in Broward. And I'm delighted to be with Osiremi too. You guys are in for a treat. This brother knows his stuff, and I love it. I love being with people who offer high quality work. And so I'm going to try and meet that same standard with you all today. Next slide, please. We're going to talk about, as promised, the PPP. I like to, next slide, think about it as PPP 2021, right? So we had PPP 2020 last year, and we're going to go through and talk about what's new and happening this time around. Next slide. This information is as of January 14th. That's what that small print says. So what I'm going to do is just sort of talk to you about where we are, what some of the key dates have been. I'll talk about the first draw PPP loans, second draw PPP loans briefly, because I know that Osiremi is going to talk to you a lot about that. We'll talk about forgiveness updates and what do you do now if you want to have a PPP loan this year. Next slide, please. Okay, the whole point of the Paycheck Protection Program is to provide relief to businesses for the impact, the adverse impact that COVID is having on our small business. You may recall that last year, the Paycheck Protection Program was created by the CARES Act that was signed by President Trump. The new PPP that is a function of the Economic Aid Act of 2021, which President Trump also signed, is what is in motion and happening right now. So because we know all the criticisms that were heard and expressed last year about PPP, SBA is taking affirmative steps this year to make sure that underserved segments of our small business community are getting access to the PPP loans. And when we talk about underserved markets, we mean women, minorities, and veterans. So when PPP first opened, it was a limited access for certain financial institutions. We have beefed up our lender match to help you find a lender to do your PPP loan. And we are around the clock doing trainings and providing assistance to business owners. Next slide, please. All right, so January 11th, the PPP opened up for first draw applicants through community financial institutions like CDFIs, community development financial institutions, minority depository institutions, SBA CDCs, and our microloan intermediaries. A couple of days later, people who had received a PPP loan in 2020 were able to apply for another PPP loan with those same financial institutions. On the 15th, we opened it up to even larger financial institutions, but still only those with assets of $1 billion or less. And then finally, on the 19th, it was open to all financial institutions for all applicants who wanted a PPP loan in 2021. Now, the important date on this slide is the date you've got to get your application done, and that is currently March 31st. Next slide. What we saw last year, of course, was that the PPP deadlines were extended. Don't rely on that, please. Got to get your application in as soon as possible so that you don't run into any glitches or trouble along the way. All right, so what is a first draw? First draw means you have not ever gotten a PPP loan before, okay? So this time around, there are new eligibilities. I mean, there are folks who couldn't get PPP last time in 2020 who are able to get it this time. There are expanded areas in which you can use the monies, and you get to select a covered period that works for you. Remember, the PPP is based on a calculation of your payroll needs for 2.5 months. So minimally, you will need to use the loan proceeds over a 2-month period, 8 weeks, but you don't have to spend it all immediately. You'll have up to 24 weeks after you get the money to exhaust all of the funds. And then again, you have to apply by March 31st. Next slide. So some of the new folks who are eligible for PPP are housing cooperatives, destination marketing organizations, chambers of commerce. They were explicitly excluded last time. They are now included this time, and some eligible news organizations. The same people who were eligible last year are eligible this year. And that includes businesses of all kinds, sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed individuals. Nonprofits are still eligible for the PPP, and tribal businesses are eligible for PPP. Next slide, please. Okay, now a second draw applicant is an applicant who got a PPP loan in 2020 and you want to get another one. Okay, and Osaremi will talk about this more, but there are eligibility requirements you've got to meet in order to get a second PPP loan. You must have less than 300 employees, 300 or less. Last time you could have as many as 500 employees. And you must be able to show that you have a 25% reduction in your gross receipts for matching quarters over 2019 and 2020. The calculation is still the same, 2.5 times your average monthly payroll in 2019 or 2020. Your loan will not be more than $2 million based on that calculation. An additional benefit, I guess, of the PPP is that if you are in the accommodations or food services sectors, that's the NAICS code number that starts with 72, the North American Industry Classification System code. You can get a PPP loan, but your calculation will be based on 3.5 times your average monthly payroll costs for 2019 or 2020 up to $2 million. So there's a recognition that the tourism industry and hospitality industry has been, and the food sector industries have been especially hard hit by COVID. Next slide. So in order to be considered a second draw recipient, you have to have had a first draw. You must have had a PPP loan last year. You must exhaust all of that money from the first PPP. If you haven't, you cannot get a second one until you do. Again, no more than 300 employees, and you've got to show that 25% reduction in your gross receipts where you're comparing like quarters. So if it's the second quarter, you're choosing second quarter of 2019, it has to be the second quarter of 2020 that you're comparing. Next slide, please. Now, loan forgiveness. Okay, now if you are a borrower who had a PPP loan last year, it is not a requirement that you have that loan forgiven before you ask for a second PPP loan. You don't have to have it forgiven in order to borrow under a second one, but you do have to use up all the money from the first one. Now, there's some important updates that the Economic Aid Act initiated. You may recall, if you've been on any of our webinars regarding PPP loan forgiveness, you will have heard us say that if you got an SBA economic injury disaster loan advance, you could not also have that amount under your PPP forgiven. The Economic Aid Act did away with that. So if you got an advance, we're not deducting that anymore from your forgiveness amount. So if you, by chance, already did your PPP loan forgiveness for 2020 and that reduction was taken, you will be reimbursed. So that money will come back to you. What's, I think, terrific is that the PPP loan you got in 2020 is not taxable as income to your business. And everything you paid for with the PPP loan is now also tax deductible. So if all your payroll costs that you use to pay with the PPP, you can still count that as an expense in your taxes as you develop them for 2020. There are expanded forgivable expenses that are permissible for any PPP loan that hasn't yet been forgiven. So those of you who've been maybe dragging your feet on forgiveness, there's a benefit to that. And we are working hard to adapt a loan forgiveness application that is simplified up for loans up to 150,000. We now have that, but for loans up to 50,000. So we're working on adapting that to include loans up to 150. Next slide, please. And we're coming into the home stretch. All right, so what do you do now? If you want a PPP loan, either for the first time or the second time, you've got to find a lender who will do the loan for you. All right, now, but before you do that, you've got to gather your documents, okay? You have to be able to show that you have payroll costs that you paid. No payroll, we have no way to do a calculation because PPP is based on your payroll costs. Remember, it's either 2.5 times your payroll, average monthly payroll, or 3.5 times if you're in the accommodations or food sector businesses. So if you've been paying people under the table, that doesn't work for the calculation, right? So gather your documents that show you paid payroll, whether it's for your employees or yourself. If you're a 1099 contractor, gather your 1099s. Okay, you're going to need your documentation. You're going to need your tax returns. Keep in mind, PPP is paid for with taxpayer funds. If you're not a taxpayer and you don't show that you are a taxpayer, it's going to be very difficult for you to take money out of a pot that's funded by taxpayers. So, pull together your tax returns from 2019. Pull together your financial statements. You're going to need to show those to your lender. If you had a PPP loan in 2020 and you go back to the same lender, It should be an easier process for you because they already have the documentation you provided for the first loan. If you are doing business with a lender that holds your business accounts, that's another good lender to try because they already see your financial activity, your inflows and outflows from your business accounts. Okay, if you use a payroll processor, that organization, that company can provide what you need to prove your payroll costs. If you don't have a lender that you want to work with, or you already know that your lender is not going to do your loan for you, you can use the lender match tool on SBA's website, sba.gov/lender match. If you want, oh, can y'all still see me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, you know what? Because I haven't done anything on my computer for a while. It kind of went to sleep. Okay. What was I saying? Oh, if you want to know all things PPP, you want to get up to date, there is oodles of information on our website at sba.gov/PPP. You can read the interim final rules that get updated regularly. You can find the latest, greatest information on all things PPP, all things regarding the shuttered venue operators grant, all kinds of things. So please do make a bookmark on your web browser for that. You can reach out to our resource partners, SCORE, Small Business Development Centers, and our Women's Business Centers. Those folks can help you for free in determining whether you have the right documents, what your calculations would be. They might be able to make a recommendation on a lender for your loan application. Remember, PPP last year, we had over 5,400 lenders making PPP loans. In this district, we know that all of our lenders have said they are going to be doing PPP loans in 2021. So that's a good thing. Also, I'd like to just say that you can find our resource partners on our website, sba.gov/local-assistance. I'd like to encourage you to sign up for our e-newsletter and our news blasts. We provide information about our own webinars, our Q&A sessions where we answer your questions live, Mondays through Wednesdays. We offer programming in Spanish. You can sign up at our website, our local site for our local newsletter at sba.gov/South Florida. You can sign up for SBA's national newsletter, which is not a bad idea, sba.gov/updates. You can follow us on Twitter. We locally have a YouTube channel that you can listen to our ongoing webinars and content that we are putting up there every week. All you would do is go to YouTube and search SBA South Florida in quotes. That'll help you find our page faster. You can call us 305-536-5521, or you can send us an email, southflorida_DO for district office. That's southflorida_DO@sba.gov. So please do reach out to us if you need additional assistance. Please don't get discouraged, but do take the time to gather your documents so that you can submit them to your lender. Oh, incidentally, in 2021, it's not as fast as it was in 2020 for your lender to get an approval from us. We are verifying that applicants are who they say they are. We are working diligently to cut down on the gross fraud that has happened in our loan programs to respond to COVID. So there is a delay between the time you apply, the lender sends it off to us, and our approval of your PPP loan. So do keep that in mind so that you can, time out what you're doing and your response to the application process. I think I'll stop there and let Osiremi get in on this action, and then we'll take the questions at the end. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, so I'll wait for that. Thank you so much.
Osiremi, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Althea. Really appreciate your diligence in putting this together, and absolutely appreciate you inviting us to participate in this webinar. I will try my best to not reiterate what Althea has already said, but maybe it's not a bad thing if I double back on this. Next slide, please. Again, my name is Osiremi Adekoye. I'm based out of New York. I am representing National Development Council. I wear many hats here at NDC, but I'm here to provide information on what you need to know about the second draw of PPP, and I will be happy to take questions at the end of this webinar. Really, the goal is just to provide context and in a way dumb it down a bit, and use real life examples to be able to dissect and provide the information to you, so it's easy for you to understand. Again, representing National Development Council and based here in New York City. Next slide, please. In today's discussion, we're gonna learn who NDC is and who Grow America Fund is. I'm gonna go over the second draw program details. I'm just elaborating on what Althea already went over. I'll discuss the qualification requirements and most importantly, discuss what documentation you would need in order for you to apply and hopefully get approved for the PPP loan. Next slide, please. Who's NDC? National Development Council is a national nonprofit. It's been around for over 50 years with one mission, and one mission only, is to provide capital to low-income areas and areas that are predominantly occupied by minorities or women. We do that in many ways, through affordable housing, through small business lending, as well as through training. We operate across the country, headquartered here in New York, but I have offices in Seattle, in Cleveland and Cincinnati, and I have operations pretty much in every state, every 50 state, including Puerto Rico. I work in the small business lending arm of NDC, and I'll provide some context as to what that means in a second. But again, NDC has been around for over 50 years, fulfilling this mission to increase the flow of capital in these communities. And particularly as it pertained to PPP, we did participate in the first and second draw, or first and second round, and we're participating in the third round right now. And our application portal is open to the public. So if you have not already applied or have applied and have not heard anything from your lender, you may feel free to certainly apply through NDC, and we'll try as much as possible to get to your application. Next slide. Slide before, sorry. Just a little glance of the work that NDC has done over the last 50 years and what the impact has been. We've been, and these numbers are not as updated as, they're updated as I'll say a year and a half ago, but they still provide you with just context as to the work that we do. We've been a part of at least $1 billion in affordable housing projects across the country, at least $1 billion in new market tax credit allocations. We've trained over 75,000 practitioners, which include economic development individuals, as well as small business owners. We've made over $259 million in small business loans, and that particularly is primarily SBA 7A loans, and does not include PPP and what we've done over the last 12 months. And we work in over 100 technical assistance client communities, providing technical assistance training and small business lending across the country. Next slide, please. Who's Grow America Fund? NDC, National Development Council, is the parent company, national nonprofit, operates 2 CDFIs, Community Development Financial Institutions. Grow America Fund is the oldest of the 2. Grow America Fund has been around for 30 years, and its mission is to provide lending. And we do that through the SBA 7A program. We're a licensed SBA 7A lender. I believe the only nonprofit that holds a license to make loans across the country, anywhere in the country. And in the first couple rounds of PPP, we processed over $70 million in PPP loans to over 700 businesses. Our average loan size was below $60,000, which tells you that we focus on the small businesses and try to provide not only lending to them, but also technical assistance. So we walk them through the application, make sure they understand where we're getting the loan amount from, and keep them updated and keep them informed throughout the lending process. As Althea mentioned, this second draw and third round PPP is a bit longer and requires a bit more documentation than the first couple rounds. And that really is the SBA doing their job to prevent fraud and to prevent folks that would not qualify for the program from taking advantage of it. Our goal as a CDFI is to provide loans in underserved communities. So we do prioritize minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, as well as businesses that are located in low-income areas. Next slide, please. Just a quick distinction between NDC and the SBA. NDC and the SBA work in tandem to make the Paycheck Protection Program happen. NDC is the lender, so you will apply directly through NDC, and SBA is the administrator, and they guarantee the program. They provide obviously the final approval. However, you do not apply for the PPP program directly through the SBA. You have to go through a lender like NDC or Grow America Fund, and I'll share our link at the end of this webinar where you can directly apply through us. But we do communicate with the SBA. We submit your application on behalf. We submit the application on your behalf, and the SBA has final approval. However, funds will be dispersed directly through us or directly through whatever lender you choose to go through. And I just wanted to provide that context because I've seen questions go around about kind of the confusion. Do I go through the SBA or do I go through a lender? Just so you know, for PPP, you must go through a lender. For EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, you should go directly through the SBA's website at sba.gov. Next slide. Here's my advice, just a quick advice. I just wanted to caution you is that be patient. This program, I believe as of the 24th of this month, they've lent out, SBA has approved about $30 billion out of the almost $300 billion is allocated for this round. It's going slower, and the reason it's because the SBA is doing that extra level of due diligence and not approving loans immediately. They're actually taking a couple of days to review the loans, to make sure they're verifying all the information, to make sure the borrowers and the businesses are who they say they are. And in many cases, actually verifying the loan amount to make sure that we are not approving loans to more than the businesses qualify for. So be patient, do not panic. If you have not applied yet, you can still do so. The program is expected to last until the end of March. So feel free to reach out to your lender. We're always available to take in applications. But please feel free to reach out to your lender and make sure that you submit an application. And lastly, be careful incurring additional expenses from quote unquote experts. I've been making PPP loans now for almost a year since it launched, but I wouldn't consider myself an expert. I think I know more than the average because I'm actually doing it on a day-by-day basis. However, be careful just incurring additional expenses from third parties that claim that they can assist you with your application. It's always nice to have advisors and CPAs to submit applications on your behalf. Just be cautious. Next slide, please. Now let's get into the meat of the program and the detail. I broke this down into several sections, going through the details of the program, how you can be eligible and who's eligible for the program, how loan amounts are determined, what documents you need depending on your type of corporate structure, just to provide a little bit more clarity on what documents you should start to prepare if you've not applied already, and if you have applied, so that you're not surprised when your lender asks you for this document. Who can apply for the Paycheck Protection second draw? Small businesses, nonprofits, including religious organizations, with 300 or fewer employees, self-employed individuals, so those filing Schedule C can apply, as well as independent contractors can apply for the PPP second draw. What's the maximum loan amount? The loan amount is determined based on your average monthly payroll. So we're taking your annual payroll, dividing it by 12 to get your monthly payroll, and multiplying that number by 2.5, up to $2 million. For folks in the accommodation and food services industry, those are restaurants, full or limited service, hotels, for example, with a NACES code it starts with 7.2, you can borrow up to 3.5 times your average monthly payroll. As Althea mentioned, this was just as the SBA realized that the folks in this industry, the businesses in this industry is where the hardest hit, and wanted to make sure that they're providing the well-needed capital for them to benefit through the Paycheck Protection Program. So again, if your businesses start with operates in the NACE code, it starts with 7.2, which is accommodation and food services businesses, you may qualify for 3.5 times your average monthly payroll. And just to be clear, you have the opportunity to utilize either 2019 payroll or 2020 payroll. It is your choice, or you can select which one. Most people go with 2019, and that reflects a higher payroll for the entire year, and usually gets them a higher loan amount. But just want to make sure that you can elect to use either 2019 or 2020. It is a loan. It is a loan until it's fully forgiven, and the interest rate on the loan is 1%. The term is 5 years, and payments are not made until your loan forgiveness amount is determined. NDC has started to, and as processing and gotten a handful of loans already fully forgiven from the first round. I would say maybe 30% of the loans that we made in the first round have fully been forgiven. And that is a reflection of the work that we do, and a reflection of the communication and open communication that we have with the businesses that we work with. There are no collateral required for this program, and no personal guarantee is required. We do have to document every 20% owner of a business. However, this is a business loan that does not require a personal guarantee. You may notice under your application when you do fill it out or sign it, that it will list out each owner that has 20% or more. Don't be scared. We do extra due diligence on each individual. However, I should make it clear that this is a business loan, and no personal collateral or guarantee is required. In addition, for you to get the loan forgiven, whether the first or the second draw, you must apply for forgiveness. The loan is not automatically forgiven. You must apply for forgiveness through this program. Next slide, please. Just additional detail. Again, you can get forgiven up to 100% of the loan if you utilize the funds for what it's intended. The main purpose of the Paycheck Protection Program is to cover payroll. So if you take, for example, $50,000 in PPP and you used all of it for payroll, as long as you can show and substantiate with documentation, payroll reports, clear check, bank statements, you can get the loan forgiven. However, you must apply in order for you to get it forgiven. The application, as I mentioned, is through an SBA approved lender. I do know that there are over 5,000 lenders, including banks and credit unions and CDFIs out there right now that you can apply through, NDC being one. But yes, you need to apply through an SBA approved lender in order to get your application processed. What are the eligible uses? SBA has expanded what you can utilize the funds for. In the first draw, you were limited to payroll, utilities, rent, and mortgage interest. SBA expanded the use in this second draw to include payroll, which includes health benefits, sick leave and medical leaves, health insurance, mortgage, rent payments, utilities, interest on certain debt. In addition, they added that you can cover property damage, as well as worker protection expenditures, which are PPPs that you purchase to keep your business in compliance with state or federal regulations. You can use funds for that. The allocation still remains the same, 60% for payroll and 40% for everything else. So make sure that you are utilizing the loan for the right things in order to get it forgiven. Next slide, please. How can I qualify and who qualifies for the PPP second round? Your 5 main things you should keep in mind. One, in order for you to qualify for the second round, you must have received the first PPP loan. You don't have to have it fully forgiven, but you must have received the PPP loan in the first round in order to qualify for the second round. If you have not received or did not receive in the first round, you can apply for the first draw. There are certain requirements that are different, such as you don't have to show the 25% revenue reduction. But if you did not receive in the first round, but you do qualify based on what I've just laid out, you can still apply for the first round. But for you to qualify for the second draw, you must have received a first PPP loan. Second item is you must have or intend to use the full amount of your first PPP loan for the authorized users before the expected disbursement date of your second draw. So if you were approved for a second draw today and your closing date is set for tomorrow, you are attesting, actually signing paperwork and document that indicates that you have already used the first draw or plan to use the first draw for the appropriate uses in order for you to qualify for the second draw. You must have 300 or fewer employees. However, if you're an employer, business in the accommodation or food service industry, that starts with 7.2 as a NACES code, you may have 300 employees for each business physical location. So if you run 10 restaurants, you can qualify 300 employees for each individual location. The fourth item is that your business must be able to demonstrate a revenue reduction of 25% or greater in 2020 relative to 2019. As Althea mentioned, you must be able to show that your revenues decline. SBA uses the word gross receipts, but I wanted to keep it simple just to let you know that means your revenue, your sales, that figure, you must show a 25% revenue reduction in 2020 relative to 2019. And this is calculated by comparing either your quarterly gross receipt for one quarter in 2020 with your gross receipt for the corresponding quarter in 2019. So for example, if you want to utilize quarter one as your quarter, if that's the quarter that you saw a 25% reduction, that's the only quarter you saw a 25% reduction, you can still qualify for the second draw. You just have to show the right documentation, sales tax receipts, profit and loss statements that you sign and date to indicate that you have that 25% revenue reduction. You can also compare the full year 2019 to 2020 if overall for the entire year you did see that reduction. You are allowed to do that. You just need to show that either one quarter saw a revenue reduction or the entire year. If you had more than one quarter, again, you still qualify. You just need a minimum of one quarter. And the last item you should keep in mind is that your business must not have been permanently closed. If you're out of business and you decided to shut it down, you do not qualify for the PPP second draw. But if your business is just temporarily closed or been suspended due to COVID, you can absolutely still qualify. Next slide, please. Now let's go to the documents you need in order to obtain a PPP loan. The general documents vary depending on the lender. As Sandy mentioned, if you're going through your bank and they already know you, you don't need to prove who you are. They have your documents, they have your ID, they know your social security number, they can validate who you are. You may not need these documents here, but if you were applying through NDC or a third-party lender that you've not worked with in the past, you will need to show these documents, as this is the way for us to get to know you and document our file that we're not lending to frankly, a robot. So if you were applying through NDC, you would need a 2019 business tax return, 2019 personal tax return for every owner of 20% or more. We need a copy of your ID for each owner, and hopefully those are up to date. Any form of ID, government issued ID is acceptable. So your driver's license or passport will do. And to calculate revenue decline, you would need documentation showing gross receipt for any quarter in 2020 and for the same quarter in 2019. And this can be a profit and loss, as I mentioned. It could be state tax receipts, just showing, oh, here's how much I filed with the state as it relates to my sales and revenues. And the document, I should mention, must be signed and dated on each page. I've had applicants have over 20 pages. Unfortunately, you must sign and date on each page. Next slide. Those are the general items you need to apply. Now, I decided to just break it down into different type of corporate structure, as there's been a ton of confusion about what should I provide if I'm an independent contractor, if I'm an S corp, if I'm a partnership. For corporations, which include S corporations as well as C corporations, filing an 1120S as well as an 1120 IRS form. If you do not have payroll, if you don't have W-2 employees, you do not qualify. For you to qualify, you must have payroll. And in order for you to substantiate how much payroll you have, you would need to submit an IRS Form 940 or an IRS Form 941. The 940 is a quarterly tax filing for employee payroll that you file each quarter, at the end of each quarter, or the 940, which is what you file at the end of the year. The 941 should always equal to 940. So if you supplied 4 941s for quarter 1, 2, 3, that should be sufficient to just check that box. If you don't have a quarterly filing, you should have an IRS 940, which is the annual filing, which should be the exact same number if I added up the quarterly tax filings. In addition to that, you would need to supply a payroll summary report or W-2s for all employees. As additional context, the reason why we're asking for this document is to substantiate that if any employee was paid or made over $100,000, we subtract the excess from their payroll. As you know, for PPP, the maximum that each employee can be allocated is $100K. And in addition to that, lastly, you would need to provide a state quarterly wage unemployment insurance tax reporting form. And each state has a different form. I know in New York, it's called an NYS 45. We would need that for each quarter. The figures, again, in those quarterly tax filings should match what you have on your 941, or if I added all 4 quarters together, should certainly match what you have on your 940. Next slide. And then partnerships, we need the same documents. We need the 940s and the 941s. For partnerships, filing a 1065. We need payroll summary reports as well as W-2 for all employees. We need state quarterly wage unemployment insurance tax reporting forms as well. In addition to that, we do need the IRS Form K1 for each partner, because you can get, in addition to your payroll, there are additional, you can increase your loan amount if you do have if you reported some self-employment figures in box 14A of your K1. So look for that. That can increase your loan amount because that can be added, and that is considered payroll if you're a partnership filing 1065. Next slide. And last but not the least, but I think the most important, because many businesses fall under this, sole proprietors, independent contractors, or single member LLCs filing Schedule C. There's a difference between what documents you need. In this case, I'll start with at the bottom. If you file a Schedule C and had W-2 employees, we need the same 3 documents I mentioned. We need the IRS 941s and 940. We need the payroll summary reports or W-2s for all employees. And we need that state quality wage document as well. That's if you have employees. If you're just an independent contractors and also has 1099 contractors and no W-2 employees, or you are sole prop with no W-2 employees, or a single member LLC with no W-2 employees, you would need to provide an IRS Form 1099 miscellaneous, which shows how much you were paid for the job and the work that you did in the selected year. Again, you can select 2019 or 2020. You will need to provide an IRS Schedule C form. If it's 2019, that already should have been filed. If it's 2020, you may not have filed that because you're not able to file right now, but you do need to prepare it. You need to prepare a Schedule C form and fill it out to the best of your ability. You need to sign it. And we can utilize that form to determine your loan amount. In addition to that, which I forgot to add on this slide, is that if you don't have a 1099 miscellaneous form, you can provide bank statements, you can provide a book of record, or invoices that substantiates your income. What the SBA wants to present in this round is folks just, again, saying I'm a sole proprietor and I made $100,000 in revenues, I had no expense, my profits was 100, I should get a loan. SBA is putting a stop to that and saying that you must provide documentation to substantiate your revenue. if you're a sole proprietor or independent contractor. Next slide, please. Again, as I mentioned, here's our website where you can apply. It's ndconline.org/PPP/. And once we, hopefully we can get to your application. It's a pre-application where you can submit preliminary information about your business, the owners of your business, and your average monthly payroll. You then get invited into our portal where you can upload documents. Those documents I mentioned to substantiate your loan amount. You will be assigned to a processor who's going to reach out to you. We try to make contact with every single borrower, either via phone or via email. I personally run a team of about 11 to 15 off and on contractors and processors that are helping us process loan applications at this point. So you definitely get that one-on-one touch and certainly have someone reach out to you. But here's a link where you can apply. And that's it for me. Please feel free to leave questions in the chat and I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
Also, Remy and Althea, I want to thank you for your presentations. And I see Althea, similar to myself, you were getting some of the Q&As already started. And also Remy will go in and take a look at some of the questions and respond. But Althea, do you want to take a few minutes to at least reintroduce EIDL to our listening audience today? Because some of the questions were certainly centered around that compared to PPP. That would probably be pretty good.
Oh, sure. Thank you for the chance to do that, actually. Folks do tend to, on occasion, get confused about what's what. So the EIDL loan is also known as SBA's Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Sometimes people call it EIDL, but it is a decades-old program of the SBA. It is a 30-year loan that it's a 30-year note. For COVID, the interest rate is 2.75% for nonprofits, 3.75% for businesses. It is not forgivable, ever. You have to pay it. The maximum for COVID relief on the EIDL loan program is $150,000. You apply for that loan at sba.gov/disaster. The administrator of SBA under the Trump administration extended the deadline for EIDL loan applications through the end of this year. Originally, it was to close on the 18th of December. Now it's December 31, 2021. A lot of confusion swirls around the EIDL advance. That is a creation of the CARES Act of 2020. Under the CARES Act, Congress dictated that SBA would make advances on economic injury disaster loan applications. It was to be a grant of up to $10,000 to businesses that applied for the EIDL loan. SBA determined that recipients would receive $1,000 per employee, up to $10,000. So some people got 1,000, some got 10, some got anywhere in between. That money does not have to be repaid. It is a grant. It was supposed to be an advance on your EIDL loan application, a way to speedily get money into the hands of small businesses. The Economic Aid Act says that SBA will give up to $10,000 to those folks from 2020 who did not receive the full $10,000 under certain conditions. If you applied for an EIDL in 2020 and you got less than $10,000 and you meet the other requirements that I won't go into right now, SBA will contact you about making up the difference to get you to that $10,000. Either way, the EIDL advance does not have to be repaid. The PPP is a forgivable loan if you spend the money the way it is designed for you to spend it. So you get a PPP loan, like some of these yahoos out here, and you take that money and you buy yourself a nice fancy car, it's not going to be a forgivable loan. Furthermore, you might go to jail and we're going to fine you and take something of value from you, in addition to taking your freedom. So if you want that loan forgiven, this is the PPP, Paycheck Protection Program loan. It is 100% forgivable if you spend the money the way you're supposed to. That is 60% or more on payroll. And then you can spend the whole thing on payroll. That's the easiest thing to do to ensure that your loan will be forgiven. But you do have up to 40% of the loan proceeds that you can spend on certain articulated expenses, not just any old expense you have in your business, but certain ones like mortgage interest payments, rent, utilities. I'm forgetting one, there's 4. And then there's some expanded payments that you can make this year with PPP. So as long as you follow the guidelines, your loan is 100% forgivable. I hope that I made the right distinctions and that was clear over the 3 different sources of funding, I'll put it that way, for COVID relief that moved through the SBA. That's EIDL, 30-year long-term note, not forgivable. EIDL advance, a grant, don't have to pay it back. PPP, 100% forgivable if you spend the money the way you should. How's that?
Thank you. I think that was great. I think
Okay.
that was real clear. So we are at the Q&A, and whether it's Savika or Vanetta, if you want to throw some of the questions at myself and Althea and Osaremi, we'll certainly try to answer in tandem so that everyone can get that answer. We know sometimes when you ask a question, it's not just for you. Others have that same question. So let's see if we can get to some of these.
Thanks, Andy. One of the first questions we have is, which qualified debts interest is eligible?
Repeat.
Under eligible uses, which qualified debts interest is eligible?
That's a real. I'll take. That's a really good question. And to be very honest, I don't think we have exactly what debt is eligible yet. I don't think there's guidance on that yet. So the answer is really not sure yet.
Okay, so then when that becomes clearer, you'll be able to get that information from SBA's website, sba.gov/PPP, and there you'll find the interim final rules that get updated regularly. And so you just scroll to the bottom of it to get the latest information.
Yep, and I should mention that in the first round, mortgage interest counted.
Yeah, mortgage interest is a use of proceeds under PPP.
And I think you answered this one. What is the eligibility for the EIDL loan?
Okay, no, I didn't mention that, so I'm glad you asked. You have to be in business or a nonprofit. It includes religious institutions like churches and synagogues, and mosques may also apply to the EIDL program, as well as PPP for that matter. You have to, in order to receive any of the benefits under any of these programs, you must have been in business prior to February 15th of 2020. In the case of EIDL, you have to have been profitable because the loan is calculated at, let me make sure I say it right, gross receipts minus cost of goods sold. So you have to have been making, you must have been in business and doing business, not just having a business on the books with the state of Florida. Okay? There must have been business activity. You do have to have a decent credit score in order to be eligible for EIDL. And so that has been, and in any case, if you're going to apply for any of these and your credit report is locked up, please unlock it because it will be checked. And if it cannot be checked, you will be summarily declined.
Okay, and these ones are also in response to the EIDL loan. So can you apply for a new EIDL loan if you got one in 2020?
Well, okay, so the short answer to that question is no. However, if you received an EIDL loan less than the $150,000 maximum, you can ask for a loan increase. And you would send that in an email to SBA, which I will put in the chat, and asking for, a loan increase. Put that in the subject line. Now, it is questionable whether you'll ever get an answer on that, because the priority is for people who have never received COVID relief funding. But you're certainly welcome to ask, and you should ask for a loan increase because you never know. So I will put that in the chat.
Okay, great. Because the other question is, where do we apply for the EIDL? And it sort of goes to this next question as well. If I already received the EIDL loan and use the funds, can I apply for a second one? So that goes back under that threshold.
Right. So again, you cannot get a second EIDL loan. What you may be able to do is, what you can certainly do, is ask for an increase on the loan you got, as long as your loan is less than $150,000, which is the maximum for COVID relief. The way you apply for it is at our website, sba.gov/disaster.
Okay. What funding is available for a business that had to close its location, let staff go, but the business is operating out of a home? All of the products are made by owner and being sold out of the home under the business name.
Okay, so presumably any funding is available, right? If you apply for it, you're still an ongoing concern. You can certainly appeal to SBA's regular 7A loan program. If the question is what kind of COVID relief can you apply for, you can apply for an EIDL loan. I guess you could theoretically apply, Osiremi, help me out here, a PPP loan based on your payroll, but if you don't currently have payroll, then you take that PPP loan with the express purpose of paying payroll, and you're not going to pay payroll. One of the things Osiremi mentioned is when you apply for any of this money, you're making assertions and claims that you, one, need the money, and two, you will use the money as we expect you to. So three, if you don't do those things, that is, you ask for a PPP loan based on payroll that you did have, but you no longer have, and you will not pay payroll with that money, you have, and you know this going forward, you have, in my sense of things, committed fraud against the government, and that is a very unwise thing to do. Very unwise.
No.
But if you do have payroll and or you intend to bring those employees back, then you can certainly use PPP for that.
100%. I should add that payroll includes your salary as well. So if you did pay yourself,
Right.
And you're now the only employee, you can get PPP for you and show that you utilize the funds to pay yourself. Whether you had been on payroll as a W-2 employee, or if you're a sole proprietor utilizing your profits.
And
I'm
also,
so glad you mentioned that. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead out there, because I want also Remy to come back around on that about the sole proprietor, but primarily about the employee, because we often hear folks talking about paying themselves, and then when you ask to demonstrate as a sole proprietor, as an owner, outside of those 1099 independent contractors, how do I pay myself? That's the thing about an employee. So I wanted you also, Remy, to make sure that they were clear about the fact that, folks, you have to be able to account for any funds you're saying that you even paid yourself as an employee. It's not like today I'm just gonna write me a check and go to the store. Also, Remy?
Yep, thank you. For sure, that's it. I mean, the program is designed for payroll, so you have to be able to substantiate and prove payroll. If you have yourself on W-2, you are on payroll, that counts. Or if you're a sole proprietor or a single member LLC or an independent contractor, file in the Schedule C, we can utilize your profits to determine your payroll. So if you don't have anyone on W-2 and you're just an independent contractor, and in 2019 your profits were $20,000, that $20,000 is considered your annual payroll. And the reason is because you're paying self-employment tax on that. So that is your pay, that is your take home. We're going to divide that number by 12 and multiply by 2.5 to determine your maximum loan amount. So again, you don't have to be on payroll if you're a Schedule C employee, Schedule C business that has profits. You just need to show profits. If you showed a loss in 2019 or in 2020, you do not qualify. Anything under zero just can be divided by 12 because it's zero. But if you made $20,000 or $10,000 or $5,000 with your profit in 2019, you can qualify. We take that number as your annual payroll divided by 12, multiplied by 2.5. I should mention that for 2019, obviously, tax return must be presented in order to substantiate that. For 2020, you don't have to have filed. You just have to prepare the Schedule C. You can go online and just type in a Schedule C form. It's available. It's public. It's a public form. You can either print it out or complete it online as a PDF. But you have to sign it and say, hey, these numbers are correct. These are actually my true numbers. And when you do apply, you need to substantiate and provide documentation for your revenue. So if you reported $100,000 in revenue, you need to provide bank statements or invoices, or preferably 1099 miscellaneous form for every single job that adds up to 100K.
Right, and I'm so glad that came up, because I think a lot of times small business owners and those applying for PPP don't fully appreciate that, if you pay yourself in your business one way or another, you can use PPP funds to pay yourself. That's okay. Just be able to, again, substantiate it, show it later with evidence, show it as you apply because you did it before. Because all of that is legitimate. It's when, it's illegitimate that you have a problem and will have a problem with the federal government. And whatever documents you use for the PPP, you must retain those documents for at least 6 years after you receive PPP funds. And the government reserves the right to come and check on you, your loan, and making sure that everything is above board. So we'll that's why you have to retain it for at least 6 years.
And is your credit score a factor to apply for the PPP loan? One of our attendees says that because of COVID, they maxed out their credit card, causing their credit score to drop.
It is not. This is not a cash flow based loan. It's not based on your credit. We're not pulling any personal credit. We are doing some searches just to make sure that you are eligible for federal financing. However, your credit is not a factor in a determination of your loan amount. As long as you have payroll, that's what qualifies. For the EIDL loan, I'll let Althea speak to that, but credit is important for that loan.
Yes, no. An EIDL loan is a cash flow loan. So if you cannot afford this loan, you will not be given the loan. If you do not qualify in terms of if you do not have a credit score that is acceptable to SBA, you will be declined. Because again, this is taxpayer money and SBA has to be a good steward of that money. We cannot knowingly give money to someone who cannot repay it. And some of that is determined by how you pay others. If you don't pay others, there's no reason for us to believe that you will pay us back. So all of that gets factored into the EIDL loan. And I think, maybe perhaps this is where I can stand on my soapbox and beat my drum once again about how important it is to maintain good records, how important it is to do things the right way. What we know about PPP is that, and EIDL, in terms of declines over the past year, is that people who do not have the paperwork cannot go the distance. People who do not, in the case of PPP, have not paid themselves the way they should. Ideally, for the IRS, it's on a W-2 format. For those who pay people under the table and around corners, that is not the right way to be running your business. I get it. I mean, I understand why you do it. Those of you who don't file your taxes properly, Schedule Cs and the like, that is not the way to run your business and to handle your finances. Do I understand why you do it? Of course I do. But that's not going to help you in this environment. And it's not going to help you even if we weren't in a COVID environment to even make a loan application to OSREMI and NDC for an SBA guaranteed loan. Because when you run everything through your business, every single expense you can think of to offset your tax liability, you're showing you're not profitable. And banks and organizations like NDC, CDFIs and the like, they make loans to people who have cash flow to pay the loan. If you show that you have no extra cash to make a loan payment, nobody's going to make a loan to you. So this is, something I've been screaming for 22 years while I've been at the SBA. And I know why you don't do the right thing, but you've got to turn the corner and do the right thing. Please.
And Asarami, this question is for you. This one is from Susan. It was in regards to a shopping center, and she has a nail salon, or it's a fellow shopping center and a fellow store that is a nail salon. And she has a follow-up question for you. It was in regards to the corporation and what they can qualify for, what are their options, and whether or not they can apply for that PPP.
Yeah, I just answered, just typed in my answer. It appears that the business is files as an S corp and has just 1099 employees. Unfortunately, because they themselves, the owner, are not on payroll, they will not qualify, even if they're profitable, just because of the corporate structure. So I recommended they apply for the EIDL loan. They're showing profits. I assume there is a bit of cash flow that they can show to be able to pay back the loan, but PPP will not be the route.
Okay, and the next question, on a PPP loan, a Type S corporation can apply for the officer dividends or just their payroll?
Just payroll, no dividends.
And are we able to schedule an appointment to discuss with someone regarding the PPP and EIDL to discuss an individual situation?
I'm happy to take appointments on PPP. I'll let Althea take EIDL as
Sure. I'll put also in the chat our email address. You are welcome to send an email there, and you can put my name in the subject line.
Sure. Someone here says they file a Schedule E for a vacation rental business, and they're an LLC. Can they apply for a PPP?
That sounds incorrect. An LLC should not. Sorry, I'll take that back. So an LLC as an S corp or partnership has a flow through Schedule E. So they do file a separate tax return. And if they have payroll shown on that tax return on that business, they can't qualify. If they are just a Schedule E kind of real estate income, it does not qualify because that's considered passive. Usually does not qualify for any SBA financing. But if they're an LLC filing a separate tax return and has their profit flowing through their Schedule E, if they do have payroll, they can't qualify. Hopefully I didn't confuse you.
No, I think we're good. Thank you. I know taxes have to be paid. Can I be on a payment plan to apply for the EIDL?
Yes, you cannot owe the federal government money and expect the federal government to give you more money. However, if you are on a payment plan, that is sufficient to get over the hurdle in terms of owing the federal government debt. It's a, you know, as long as you're paying it, you can get an EIDL loan.
That's great. When does the SBA expect to begin the targeted EIDL Advance Limited Eligibility Program?
Let me think. I have a lot of information in my head. I think that one, I can't remember if it's that one or the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant that we're hoping to be able to, oh no, yes. Okay, the answer to the question is we hope to have that figured out and rolled out in 2 weeks. So let me speak to that a little bit because Agni asked about it as well. Remember, that is part of the CARES Act monies for the EIDL loan advance. SBA gave out all that money that we were given through the CARES Act to give out those EIDL advance loans or grants, really. They were grants. The targeted EIDL advance that is spoken about under the Economic Aid Act of 2021, we are working through how to get that done. You cannot apply to that just randomly. SBA will contact you via email, so you need to be checking your email and your spam filters. If you qualify for that advance or the makeup, if you will, to get you to $10,000, SBA will be in touch with you. If you don't hear from us, it's because you're probably not qualified. You're not eligible for that. It's not that everybody who applied will get the money. It is folks who applied and are in targeted areas who will be given sort of first crack at getting that makeup money. And then it flows from there. And then finally, if there's any money left over, which I don't expect there to be any money left over, because I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think the Economic Aid Act only maybe gave another $10 billion for that. And I'm not really good at math, but I know that 10,000 into 10 billion is not a lot, considering there are 31 million small businesses in America. So just watch your email if you applied for that EIDL advance last year and you got something less than $10,000.
Okay, that'll take us right into the next question, where I heard you say something about the EIDL advance grant that did not get the maximum of 10,000. I applied and I'm supposed to get 5,000 from the CARES grant, EIDL advance grant. Am I supposed to do something to see if I could increase it to 10,000?
There's nothing you do. You will wait for SBA to contact you by email. That's the current chatter within SBA. But again, we haven't figured it all out yet, right? So the legislation is passed, it's 5,000 pages, and then we have to integrate that into how we do what we do. in order to, make sure that we give money to the right people, not qualified, but eligible people, not crooks and criminals. Okay, so there's a process for that. But no, as it stands today, based on what we know so far, SBA is going to contact you. There's nothing you can do until we do that.
Thank you. As an independent contractor, can we apply for the 7A loan?
Of course, yes, you may.
Remy, do you take loan applications from 1099s for 7A?
Well, I should say yes and no. We make
Right.
loans to businesses, so you can be, I guess, an independent contractor following Schedule C as an LLC, as a single member. But we would not make a loan to an individual. The 7A is to businesses, not individuals. Hopefully that helps.
Okay, great.
Right.
I did want to remind our attendees that following this event, you will receive an email that will contain a link to this recording as well. And I'll take it back to Sandy. We do have a few more questions, but we have a few more slides, and I do want to just look at our timeline here. And if you'd like to ask any of the other questions that we have, we can go ahead and do that, or we can proceed.
I see one question that Stephanie put in early on, and Osiremi, this is right up your alley. Regarding comparable gross receipts and the 25% reduction to qualify for PPP second draw, can you please advise the definition of gross receipts?
Yep.
Is it gross revenue or gross income?
Yep. So I don't have the exact definition in front of me. The SBA has a pretty robust explanation of it, but it is revenues, not profits. So it's your top line sales revenues right before your cost of goods sold. That number is what the SBA considers to be gross receipts. If you're a nonprofit, is all the funds that you receive in donations and contributions to the nonprofit. That's what's considered gross receipt. So again, not the bottom number, not your net profit. But the pretty much the first line item on your P&L or on your tax return is the gross receipt right before cost of goods sold.
So again, I want to thank Althea and I want to thank Osiremi for coming and supporting us today, sharing information that we hope is certainly valuable to you. As Savika or Vanetta forwards the screen, you'll see that we have a list of different resources, not just related to PPP and EIDL, but other resources that you can tap. Here at Broward County, we have a resource guide that also speaks to other businesses and business development agencies and organizations that work with us and our small businesses to help guide some of them. We even have a list in our directory of CPAs. But I am going to say something or repeat something that Osiremi said earlier. Before you go out here and start paying people, and business is always business, you need to make sure you dot your I's and cross your T's. You want to make sure that you're working with someone who's reputable, that you're paying something that's worth the return on the investment, but you certainly want to look at all of our partners and partnerships where you can potentially get some technical assistance for free. And I also get it. Sometimes when you say the buzzword for free, you get what you pay for. But we have a resource guide because when it comes to the SBA, when it comes to PPP and or EIDL, or just access to capital or understanding different programs, we want to make sure that our businesses have access to do their homework. We get it. You have to do your homework. So we want to make sure we can present to you different organizations, federal, state, and local, that may be able to assist you. As you heard earlier, Althea and Osiremi put their contact information into the chat box. So you will have access to them. You have access to our office and my ED staff, the economic development staff, to entertain questions that we can answer for you, as well as potentially guide you to other agencies or organizations that can as well. But we do want you to take advantage of the information you heard today. This information, this whole PowerPoint presentation is going to be put up on our website so you can go back to it. But more importantly, it's not ending tomorrow, but it's not here forever. So you do need to be aggressive about remaining focused and preparing yourself with your documentation to go after the second round of PPP or your first round of PPP if you didn't apply before. And if interested, by understanding your makeup and where you are going after the EIDL. Althea will also tell you, as a business, there's multiple programs that the SBA has that, outside of COVID and us introducing as well as reintroducing it, it's just information you need to know. So please marry yourself. They're on our resource guide. Marry yourself to the sba.gov. There is always helpful information, and they continue to put out their information, even to this day, on webinars and information on PPP. As mentioned, they will be notifying you, and there will be more information coming out as more rules come out, or the final rules for what we're dabbling in now. And our thing is to make sure that even if not our office, we get it. We make sure that the business community, especially the small minority and women-owned community, the business community, have access to real substantive resources to try to guide you through this process. And unfortunately, I often have to remind you, I'm government, so I can't be advising you. Worst thing that can happen is I advise you, it don't work, and you're ready to sue Broward County. But we're not afraid, and we assume the responsibility for making sure we put information, substantive information, in front of you so that you can do your homework and you can identify resources that can help you and your business. So again, Althea, thank you for joining us as always. Osarimi, thank you for joining us as always. We have a customer satisfaction survey that we want to make sure you take advantage of, because in the end, we need to hear how we did, but more importantly, we're in 2021. We only want to be doing workshops that are of value to the business community. We don't want to be doing this so that my commissioners can say, hey, we don't want to do workshops for the sake of doing workshops. We want to do the workshops that can add value to you as a business owner, value to your business, and for those of you who are listening today who are local, growing our economy. So we want you to take our survey. We want you to stay engaged with us. There's a slide that gives you all of our contact, how to follow us on social media, and how to reach out to us in terms of getting information even beyond the PPP and the EIDL. So with that, thanking my presenters again today. Savika or Vanetta, is there anything else that I forgot so you won't be chewing me out later?
The slide that's up now regarding our new digital services.
Oh my goodness, see there? The
How could
slide
you
is up
forget?
now regarding our new digital services. So I'm gonna say this, so don't be laughing at me. Althea knows me enough so she can laugh, but y'all don't know me enough to laugh at me. Folks, I have been in Broward 8 years this upcoming May. No more Michigan and all that snow, no more Washington, D.C. out there, and I got that D.C. kind of a history. But I've been down here in South Florida for 8 years this May. And I recognized about 4 years ago that you and I and other businesses, you even can do your taxes online these days. Nobody's printing documents, doing their number 2 pencil and faxing stuff in. So I was disappointed in me and my office. But I'm excited now. I actually smiled, and I normally don't smile. I smile now because next month, for all of my new certified firms, those who want to get certified with me, you can go online, read my application as you've been doing, but you can actually complete your application online. You can upload it online. You can do this 24/7. Only reason I'm excited and giddy is because honestly, this should have been like 7 years ago. So I caught up. Me and my shop caught up. So there's a lot of new digital activity that's launching in February. And because we require the big firms to use my small firms, I always had a directory, but I got a better directory. The big firms can now just go in and say, hey, I want a list of all electrical contractors. If you're in my directory, it pops up. If they kind of sort of remember half your name, like a wild card, they can put the half they know, it pops up. Folks, I'm giddy and I'm excited because I should have had all this stuff 4 years ago. But the fact that I have it rolling out in about a week, that means Broward County, my office, we still listen. We heard you. We're now making this accessible 24/7. And all it does is give you more of an opportunity to participate in what we do to assure that small businesses can participate. So staff wanted me to tell you that. I don't have that kind of shame that I wasn't going to tell you that. I'm going digital next month. So please join us. Tell your friends about us. Tell your other businesses about us. But we are seriously here to aid you as a business, as a small business, as a woman or minority business in Broward. And there is much you need to know if you're trying to grow your business, and Broward's committed to helping you do so. So again, thank you for joining us today. Althea, thank you. Osarimi, thank you. We'll be talking to you again real soon. Use our website to understand or see all of our events and our activities. And again, ask us questions so that we can give you legitimate answers. Thank you all. Have a good day. Stay safe.
Thank you. Congratulations, Sandy. That's
Thank you, ma'am.
awesome. Yeah, thanks, Osaremi.
Thank you. We'll be in
Thank
touch.
you, sir.
Good to see y'all. Bye, Vanetta.
Bye, Savika. Bye, Vanetta. Thank you both.
Hi, thank you.